Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to replace drum brakes on your vehicle. Let's go ahead and get started. You want to make sure that your emergency brake is off because that will lock the drum brakes. So we'll go ahead and release that. Put that down, but make sure that the vehicle is in gear and that the wheels are chocked so it doesn't slide. Whenever doing work with your vehicle in the air, never rely strictly on the jack. Always use jack stands and play it safe. This is the drum right here. And then inside is where you have your drum brakes and springs and all the hardware that we're going to remove this. We'll take a look at all that. These can sometimes be a little bit tight to get off, so you can either use a little pry bar or a flathead screwdriver to kind of work that off depending how long it's been on there. This one here looks, it's got a little bit of age on it here, so I don't know what we're going to be getting into. But we're going to go ahead and pry that off, and then we'll be able to get to everything. But before we do that, let me show you everything that you'll need to complete this video. These are the items that are needed to complete this. First of all, you are going to need either a hammer or a sledgehammer, or like a small sledgehammer, but something that we can bang on the drum itself. Sometimes those are seized on there. You need to kind of tap along it to loosen it up. You will also need a pry bar. Sometimes that's needed also to help pull that drum off if it's really seized on there. And also a flathead screwdriver is not a bad idea either. That way you can bang it with the hammer. Next, you are going to need some needle nose pliers. That comes in handy with removing the springs and different pieces off the brake shoes themselves. You're obviously going to need your replacement brake shoes. And what I have here is the hardware kit. Highly recommended. Sometimes people try to reuse them, and you can, but it's not advised because some of the springs and hardware can be corroded and just falling apart, and it can cause problems down the line. So it's a good idea to spend the extra few bucks and get the hardware kit as well. That includes your clips and springs and things like that. Definitely recommended. And then you also will need some anti-seize lubricant, which is good to put on the contact points where the shoes meet the back plate, and also on the front side of the drum as well. That way it prevents issues happening down the line, because if not, these brakes can be problematic in general, but if you don't use this, sometimes they can get seized on there and lock up and then cause problems down the line. So these are the items that are needed. We'll start by pulling on it. Sometimes they can come off if they're not seized. First thing you can try, take a hammer or even a little sledgehammer and just tap around the edges to kind of loosen it up. Depending how long it's been on there, it could be kind of stuck. Now you want to be careful with your wheel studs. You don't want to hit the thread. So okay, we'll take the pry bar in here. See if we can't pop that off. There we go. It's moving a little bit. These can be a little tricky if they've been on there a while. Just want to be patient. You don't want to damage anything in the process. Another thing you can try is just take a flathead screwdriver, position it right here on this edge right here of the drum. You don't want to be pushing against this backer piece here, but we'll just put it against here. Take the hammer, keep tapping it. Depending how long these have been on here, you may have to work with it a little bit to get it off. So I'm just going to go along the edges like this, and we're just going to take the hammer, be hitting it on this lip right here, and that'll break it loose and we can slide that off. You can see it budging a little bit. Now that we've banged it far enough out, we can take our pry bar in here and just gently pop on this. Just want to show you the issue we're running into. This is our rear brake shoe right here. The front brake shoe is stuck inside the drum. That's the problem. And then you've got springs and hardware all attaching, which is keeping that in there. So that's what we're trying to break loose. This drum itself, as you can see, it's got definitely a worn out look. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to replace that. We're not replacing that though in this video. We're only doing the drum brakes themselves inside. But this actual drum, we'll clean it off, but it's definitely seen better days as well. So I'm taking the pry bar, putting it in here, getting some leverage, and we're finally getting it to move. And I think we're going to see it pop off soon. Okay. Look at this. Filthy. And I'm going to get a close-up in here, but this cylinder back here is damaged as well. We're going to have to replace that as well. You can see the little rubber piece right there has been punctured. And if we take a look, that's completely out of whack. This one here doesn't look too good either. So we're going to have to replace this as well. So once we do all this, and for this video we're doing the drum brakes themselves. To replace the cylinder, that'll be another video. So please subscribe so you don't miss that, but that'll be a part of another video. Before we go any further, I just want to identify these parts for you. So up here on top, we have the wheel cylinder. That's what we saw was damaged. That has to be replaced. This right here is obviously your brakes right here. You have your rear brake shoe because this faces towards the back. That's our front brake shoe because that faces towards the front of the vehicle. Next thing that we have this top spring that runs from here to here in between the two shoes. That's our return spring. Behind the return spring, we have our adjuster screw assembly back there. It's an automatic adjuster. And once we pull it out, we'll look at it. It has a little threaded kind of notched piece, and that will adjust as far as the tension in between those two. Right here, you have what's known as the hold down clip. There should have been one on this side. That's obviously been broken off, which is part of the problem. That's why we're redoing the brakes on this vehicle. You can see that the actual brake shoes have brake on them, but these brakes had actually locked up, which is a problem with these kind of drum brakes. Moisture in the air, if the car sits a lot, which this one does, they kind of got seized in there and locked up. And then once we got it moving again, I guess some of the hardware was also rusted out as well, because you have that hold down clip and then there's a little piece that comes through that has a flat end that can tighten. Almost looks a little bit like a nail with a flat end on it. That's missing as well. So that explains why this particular shoe is loose and not solid as that one is and was stuck. If we come down, I'm going to get a close-up so we can see behind it to identify the rest of the parts. Coming behind the hub assembly right here, and we look right here, this little piece, that is your automatic adjuster lever, and then the spring that goes with it that goes all the way down to the bottom of the shoe right there. And then if we come all the way down here on the bottom, clear this up, you have at the very bottom the brake anchor plate, which is right here. And if you can see it, there's actually a spring, a brake shoe to anchor spring that runs. Let me see if you can see that. It runs in between there. And then you have, let's see if I can, that little spring back there, that's our parking brake cable. And we'll see that once we pull everything out, but that little spring back there, that's what that is. Now, as we saw with that hardware, you can see it gets roughed up. Obviously, we had some of the pieces that broke off that are missing. Some of the springs are all dirty and corroded. That's why it's a really good idea when you're going to do your drum brakes to get the hardware kit that goes with it as well, because that way you're putting all new hardware in there. That way when you put the new brake shoes in there, everything functions properly. We're going to start by removing this brake shoe to anchor spring. You can just grab it with some needle nose pliers and we'll be able to pull it out. There we go. You can see how bad that is, definitely needing to be replaced. Now with that off, we can go ahead and remove the pin on this holding clip. And if we just push in on it, there's a flat piece there that can be grabbed. And it's here on the back side. I'll show you the back side as well so you can see where it comes through. This is the back of it right here. What I'm going to do is take our needle nose pliers, grab it, push back on the clip, and then turn it. So now the clip slides off. Pull that out of there. And then we can push this back through and everything's out. You can see how bad they are as well. Next thing, we have this return spring. We need to remove that as well. I'll show you where that connects in so you can see where we need to pull it out. And see if I can get a shot of it. You can see how it kind of loops around and hooks here on the back side of that brake shoe. So that's what we're going to go ahead. We need to pull that out. Now with the spring gone here on the bottom, you can see there's one of the pieces that was not there. It was laying in the bottom. So anyway, we can pull these now off. Now that the spring's gone, from the brake anchor plate, you can pull it around it. So let's get here on both sides. Pull that out. And now if we come up top, we can pull that. And then we can now remove the return spring. Pull this out. We have this piece here, which is our automatic adjuster lever and the spring that goes with it. And now we can just pull this spring out of here. Bring it out like this. We want to remove this part, which this is our adjuster screw assembly. And you want to make sure you have how that goes in here. You want to make sure you have it together in the way that it goes. You can see how it's notched, how you have the deeper end towards the back, the shallower in the front right here. We'll set that off to the side. You can replace those as well. I'm not replacing them on this one. It wasn't part of the hardware kit that we got, but you can if you want. And then we can go ahead now and remove this spring. Since we're replacing the spring with the shoe, we don't need to bother taking that one off. But you do have one E-clip right here holding this onto the parking brake lever. So we do need to pop that off. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's see if we can't work this off right here. You don't want to lose that. So we'll just grab it like this. Slide that off. And then now this can just slides off the parking brake lever. And that's it. Taking a look in here, this is very dirty, so we're going to clean all that out as well. You don't want all that junk in there. But you can see it. And there's a better shot of here's the parking brake cable here that connects to the lever. You don't have to remove this hub bearing assembly. However, taking it off makes it a lot easier when you're trying to put everything back. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it. That way we can see how everything goes together. Like I said, you don't have to. Some people work around it, but I'm going to go ahead and remove it just because that'll make it easier. And now you have access to everything, a nice open area. We can clean that real good, and then we can rebuild it. Here's all the space in here. So we're going to clean this real good. Get all that junk out of there. Take a steel brush first. Scrape all that junk out of there. That cylinder's coming out, so I don't really care. Clean all that junk out. And that. I'm going to clean all this, and then we'll be back. So let's see how it turned out. Take some brake cleaner. Wash it down with some brake cleaner, and then we'll scrape off what's left. Looking a lot better. We'll let that dry, and then in the meantime, I'm also going to swap out the wheel cylinder, and then we'll be back to put everything all back together. We're ready to start reassembling all the hardware and putting the shoes in, but the first thing that we need to do is we need to take this anti-seize lubricant, and we're going to hit the 3 points. There's a point right here, there's a point here, and a point here where the actual brake shoe rests in those areas. You want to lubricate those with the anti-seize before you put those on. So there's 3 on each side. I'm going to apply that, and then we'll come back to start putting all the hardware in here and putting it all back together. Here's all the spots that I hit. You do not want to be putting it on the actual brake itself where the shoe meets the drum. We're only putting it here where the pad lays in and rests in those areas. So you can see here, there, here, in those 3 spots. Next, I'm going to attach this rear brake shoe to the parking brake lever. I'm going to go ahead and slide that through. And then we'll take this E-clip and reattach it. Take our needle nose pliers. That's on there. The E-clip is nice and secure. Make sure that's properly locked in. We'll put this shoe, line it up, and the next thing I'm going to do is take the hold down clip, feed it through the back so we can get this locked in. Turn it. There we go. Take the clip, slide it in place, and I'm going to take the needle nose pliers. So we can push down on it. And that one's on. These can be a little bit of a pain to get in place, but that one's secure. Next part that we're going to put in is the automatic adjuster screw assembly. You want to make sure that you get it to match in. As you can see here how it slides in place. So you have this, the longer cut is in the back to go around the park brake lever. and then slides this way. And on the other side, you need that little bit of a notch out here. We're going to slide this in. And now we'll take the other shoe, mount it here, take the bottom, slide it around the brake anchor plate, and we have that in place. There it is. And then now I'm going to get the other hold down clip, feed it on this side the same way we did on this one, and then we'll be back to start putting the springs in. The other hold down clip has been put in. So we have the rear brake shoe and the front brake shoe in place. We also went ahead and put the adjuster screw assembly in. That's all locked in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this part here, which is going to lock in right in here, and then it can slide just like that. Next thing is we're going to take the spring, the adjusting lever is in, and now the adjusting lever spring we're going to put in place, and then we'll take the brake shoe to anchor spring, put that in, and then the last spring is the return spring that goes across the top here. And then that whole assembly's in, then we can put the hub bearing assembly in place and put the drum back over it. And this can connect. Just grab this, and we're just going to raise it right. There we are. That's in place. That's good. Next, we're going to attach the anchor spring. There's a slot right here where it can slide in. We'll put it in. Now, it does have to feed behind the brake anchor plate, but I'm going to attach it first, then we'll slide it behind it. Now, to pull it, what I found works is just using some hose pliers, because you've got the little hook, so I can just grab it here. We'll pull it to where it needs to go, and then we will feed it in. We have it attached, so now I'll just push it down, slide this, and just pull it down underneath. Okay, work this one down here. And that's it. Now the last piece is this return spring, and it clips in. There's a little slot up top here and one here. Let me get a close-up and I'll show you how it slides in, and then we'll stretch it out. It slides right in that little indentation there, and if you come over to this side, it connects into that one up there. And you can see the spring. That's how it goes in. So now we'll stretch it out here to connect it up into that corner. Now to stretch this spring, it can be a little hard to pull it. You can use spring pliers, but I'm just going to use these hose pliers and just lock that loop right here, and then grab right onto here on the outer part of the brake shoe where it has the indentation, and we're just going to pull it till we line it up with the hole, and just stretch it, and then we'll go ahead and feed it in. There are actual brake plier sets as shown here that you can purchase that can make the job easier. I just found that the hose pliers have always worked well for me. Everything is assembled. The return spring has been attached. Everything is set properly. I'm going to go ahead and slide the hub bearing assembly on, and then we'll put the drum over it, tighten everything up, and we're good to go. The hub bearing assembly and nut have all been put back on. So we're ready to put the drum back over. However, sometimes after you do the brakes, especially if you do the cylinder as well, like we had to do on this one, sometimes it's hard to get that drum to slide back over because the cylinder is compressed too far out, and also your adjuster screw is extended too far. So you want to make sure that you loosen the screw as much as it'll go in, and you open up the bleeder valve on the cylinder, release any pressure so you can compress it fully, so that way you can slide it on like we're going to do right here. And if you do that, it'll slide on with no problem. If not, sometimes it can be tight and you need to release all that to get that to slide on. So now that we have that all together, let's see, moving good. Let's go ahead and put the wheel back on. Don't forget to bleed the brakes at this point as well. It's easier to do it before you have the wheel put back onto the hub. Okay, well that wraps up this video on how to replace the drum brakes on your vehicle. I hope that this video was informative for you, helped you out with any projects you're working on. Please send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.